for disappearing after my sister hiked my rent to $6,000, then opening my own restaurant? My name is Jasmine and I am 35 years old. People always ask me how I ended up in the restaurant business, as if it had been an accident. The truth is, I've carried it with me since I was a child. While other girls played house, I set up restaurants in my room. I made menus with markers. I arranged chairs as if they were tables and invented orders. It made me laugh, but it was also very serious to me. After college, where I studied hospitality management, I went straight to work. No, let's see what happens. I joined a national restaurant chain in the operations department. That was 13 years ago, and since then my life has revolved around shifts, suppliers, inventories, training, and that controlled chaos that only someone who has been on the other side of the counter understands. I didn't look back. Well, not until my family pulled me into their drama. About 9 long years ago, my parents approached me with what they called a family situation. My older sister Chloe, according to them, was going through a hard time. She owned a condo in Zilker, a great part of Austin, well located, one of those properties that always goes up in value. The problem was that she could no longer afford the mortgage and HOA fees without renting it out, but she didn't want to sell it either because it was projected to be worth much more later on. They told me on a Sunday at our usual family dinner. My mom was serving pot roast, my dad had on his, "This is important" face, and Chloe wore her calm smile as if they were doing me a favor. "Jasmine, honey, we need you to help your sister," my mom said, lowering her voice as if it were a secret. "She is really struggling." My dad nodded. The rent for a place like that around there is about $1,200. If you could give her $1,500 a month, just until she gets back on her feet. I thought, that is a lot. It wasn't a small thing, but Chloe was my sister. And let's be honest, in my house she was always the golden child, the one for whom everything turns out well, the one who knew how to make the right choices, the one with a good head on her shoulders. If she was doing badly, then it was serious. That's what I told myself. "Okay," I answered. "I can do that." And just like that, without drama, I moved into my sister's condo and started sending her $1,500 every month. Sometimes through Zelle, sometimes with a direct bank transfer. However it was done, it was punctual. We never signed a formal lease. Everything was a verbal agreement, family style. And for that very reason, it always fell on me to be the one to give in. The condo was fine, but you could tell it was begging for some attention. Old fixtures, worn paint, the kitchen half updated, little things. Over time I transformed it, little by little, without showing off, without asking for applause. I became obsessed with making it a home. I liked a clean, minimalist style with Nordic touches, light wood, lots of light and order. I replaced furniture, bought new appliances, fixed the lighting, put a breakfast bar in the kitchen, and changed the countertop to a more durable quartz one, all with my own money. Everything. My parents and Chloe would visit from time to time, and it was always the same. "Jasmine, it turned out so pretty," my mom would say, running her hand over the kitchen counter as if she were checking the quality of fabric. "You have very good taste." Chloe would smile and nod. "Yes, it looks good." The comments ended there. No one asked how I was doing at work. No one was interested in my goals. It was as if my real life was background noise, and the only important thing was that I kept the condo looking nice while money kept flowing to her. 5 years into living there, I was no longer the same person. I had worked my tail off at the restaurant chain. I started from the bottom and learned everything. I took courses in administration, personnel management, cost analysis, and food safety. I kept climbing. I became the director of operations, which in short meant being the one who put out fires before anyone else even saw smoke. For me, it was a huge achievement. One night I tried to tell them at the family dinner. "I got promoted," I said with a smile that took some effort. "I am now the director of operations." My mom didn't even look up from her plate properly. "Oh, that's good, honey." And automatically, "Hey, by the way, your dad is a little short on the car payment this month. Do you think you can help us out?" I took a deep breath. "Yes," I said. I always said yes. I knew that money wasn't coming back, but I repeated to myself that it was family, that I could afford it, that's what I was there for. A couple of years later, Chloe got settled. She married Kevin, a guy who looked fine on the outside, but with a way of sitting and looking around that always made me nervous, as if the world owed him something. Then they had a girl, Lily. I was genuinely happy. Not for Kevin if I'm honest, but for Chloe, for the baby, for that idea that finally my sister was going to be stable and wouldn't need so much help anymore. I was wrong. One day, Chloe called me for a family meeting. Just that phrase gave me a bad feeling. I went to my parents' house and there they were. Chloe with Lily on her lap. Kevin with a face like he was about to close a business deal. My parents were ready to support whatever it was. Jasmine, Chloe started, bouncing the little girl with one hand. Now with the baby, our expenses have skyrocketed. I saw her waiting for the inevitable. We need you to pay $2,000 in rent instead of $1,500. I felt a punch to the gut. $500 more every month. It wasn't a small amount even with my salary. And besides, it was absurd. That neighborhood had high rents, yes, but what I was already paying was more than fair for a family deal. Chloe, I tried. Kevin leaned forward slightly. It's only fair. We did the math. Everything is going up. You understand. The baby stirred and Chloe hugged her. And there, in front of that family scene, I didn't have the strength to say no. Okay, I said. I'll adjust. What no one knew is that I had been saving for years. Not just pocket change. I had a real plan. Every month, after paying that inflated rent and covering my parents' emergencies, I set aside whatever I could for my dream, opening my own restaurant. At the chain, I had learned a lot and had also seen their mistakes. How they threw money away on foolish decisions, how they neglected the staff, how they bet on things that looked pretty but didn't work. I had a complete business plan: menu, costs, suppliers, staffing structure, shifts, training. I had everything written down, reviewed, and corrected. By that point, I had already saved about $180,000. I earned a good salary. I had performance bonuses. I didn't have children. And although it sounds sad, my life was just work and home. That's why I could save without going into debt. Then, the thing that changed everything happened. The CEO of the chain, Mr. Robert Peterson, announced his retirement. He had been at the helm for more than 20 years. For me, he was more than a boss, he was my mentor. When I started, he was the first one who took me seriously. He pushed me to learn, not to remain just the one who solves things. Jasmine, you have an instinct for this, he used to tell me. Don't limit yourself. Learn everything you can. I thought that with his departure, I had an opportunity, not out of empty ambition, but out of logic. I had been his right hand for years. I knew the suppliers, the systems, the delivery routes, the personnel, the problems, the solutions. I was literally on top of the day-to-day operations. But in the all-hands meeting, Mr. Peterson dropped the bomb. My daughter is going to be taking over as CEO, he said with a smile full of pride. Valerie Peterson, 22 years old, fresh out of business school, zero real-world experience, and she arrived as if the place had been hers forever. She graduated from one of the top business schools in the country, Mr. Peterson explained. She brings new ideas, she is brilliant. I took a breath and forced myself to be open-minded. I thought, maybe she does bring something good, maybe she learns fast, maybe with my experience we can be a great team. That illusion lasted 3 days. On the Monday of her first week, Valerie asked me to come to her office. I walked in and froze. She had already changed everything. She got rid of her dad's heavy mahogany desk and put in a sleek glass one with a chair that looked like it was from a design magazine. It didn't look like an operations hub. It looked like a tech startup's boardroom. Jasmine, right? She said without looking at me, typing on her laptop, as if she hadn't seen me 1,000 times at company events, as if she hadn't heard my name every time her dad spoke of key people. Yes, I replied, watching my tone. I wanted to welcome you and see how I can help you get settled in. Finally, she looked up. She looked at me like someone evaluating an old piece of furniture. Look, she said, leaning back in her chair. I've already been reviewing the team structure, and we need to make some changes. What kind of changes? I asked. New people, fresh blood. This industry moves fast and we need people who can keep up. I felt a chill, not at the idea of improving but at her tone. Valerie smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. And well, let's be honest, how old are you? 35. You are already getting old for this industry. Right now it's all about young people, innovative people. I stood there frozen. Valerie, I said, trying not to raise my voice, I have been here for 13 years. I know every supplier, every system, every real problem we face. I have helped build this. She waved her hand as if dismissing my entire career. That is exactly the problem. You are trapped in old ways of thinking. We need to break the mold here. I listened to her and couldn't believe it. I already called a friend from my graduating class, Jessica, she said. She is perfect for your position. My position, I repeated, the words feeling foreign. Yes, your position. There began the fall. I talked to her about ongoing projects, training plans, relationships with suppliers, about how the different locations were managed. She wasn't interested. She answered me with generic business jargon, as if I were telling her a long, boring story. Jasmine, she said with a tone that pretended to be reasonable. Don't take it personally, it's just business. I left that office feeling like I had been hit by a truck without a single scratch to show for it. 13 years of my life, and this young woman came to erase them as if they were an old computer file. That night I called Mr. Peterson. Mr. Peterson, we need to talk about Valerie, I said as soon as he answered. She told me she is going to replace me with a friend of hers, someone with no experience in our operations. There was a long silence on the line. Are you sure? He asked finally. Valerie told me she was excited to work with the existing team. She told me directly. She said I'm old, that she already spoke with the person who is going to replace me. Another silence. And then the unmistakable sound of parental pride. Jasmine, you have to understand. Valerie is very well prepared. She brings an impressive development plan. Her professors speak wonders of her. I gritted my teeth. Preparation is not the same as hands-on operations. She doesn't know our customers, our suppliers, or the staff dynamics. She will learn fast, he said. And sometimes that is just what we need. A fresh perspective. So you're okay with her firing me? No, wait, I didn't say that. Let me talk to her. Surely it was a misunderstanding. Maybe she just wants to restructure. I hung up with a tiny sliver of hope. It lasted 2 days. Valerie called me into her office again. I already spoke with my dad, she said without any pretense of kindness. He says maybe I was a little hasty. I let out a breath. That's good. I'm glad we can work this out. Don't get your hopes up, she answered dryly. I am going to give you 2 weeks to close out your pending projects and document everything. After that, you can go look for another job. I was speechless. 2 weeks isn't enough, I said. This is 13 years of relationships, processes, agreements. It will have to be enough, she responded. Jessica starts in 3 weeks. I want her to find everything in order. In that moment I understood that arguing was a waste of time. Her mind was made up, probably since before she ever stepped foot in the building. Okay, I said. I'll do what I can. And as I walked out I felt something strange. Pain, yes, rage, humiliation, but also deep down a feeling I didn't expect, relief. As if for the first time in years a door was open for me that I didn't dare open myself. 2 weeks later I left the corporate office for the last time as an employee. Valerie made everything more difficult. She questioned every document, scoffed at my recommendations, rolled her eyes, and there was Jessica, her friend, walking around as if she were already in charge, repeating buzzwords without understanding what they meant. For 3 days after that I did nothing, absolutely nothing. I stayed home, ordered food from DoorDash, started binge-watching a series on Netflix, and just let my body unwind. I didn't remember the last time I rested without thinking about reports, supply shortages, or employee shifts. On the 4th day I told myself, I have to tell them now. Saturday dinner at my parents' house was a tradition. Chloe arrived with Kevin and Lily, who was already 4, almost 5. I waited until we were seated with our plates served to let it out. I have to tell you something, I said. I was let go from my job. A weird silence fell over the table. Not of concern but of calculation. My dad put down his fork. What do you mean you were let go? He asked with a hard voice. The new CEO decided to bring in her own people, I said. And well, according to her I am old, that I'm no longer useful. My mom's eyes widened, but not like someone who worries, but like someone seeing a problem coming their way. So you are out of work? Yes, for now. My dad didn't even wait. And what does that mean for us? I mean, with the help you give, with what you contribute. I felt my ears burning. Chloe jumped in immediately. And the rent? Are you telling me that you are no longer going to pay the rent? Chloe, I just lost my job. I need some time. She sat up straight. No, no, no. I am not going to support anyone. If you can't pay, you get out. I just stared at her. I have been paying you $2,000 a month for a condo that, if you rented it on the open market, you wouldn't get nearly that much for. Chloe sneered. Oh, really? Well then let's make it hurt more. How about $4,000? No, $6,000 a month. Take it or leave it. I was left breathless. 6,000, I repeated slowly. You're trying to kick me out? Well, yeah, she said, shrugging. We can't carry unemployed people. I turned to look at my parents, hoping that finally they would say something sensible. My mom was the first to speak. I'm sorry, Jasmine, but your sister is right. She isn't obligated to support a freeloader. That word pierced me. Freeloader, I said, and my voice came out shaky. Me. My dad didn't correct her, not even a little bit. He just sat there as if it were the most normal thing in the world. I took a breath and nodded slowly. I understand. Chloe slapped the table with her palm. You're out in 3 days. I looked at Lily, who was happily eating her food without understanding anything. I looked at Kevin, who was smiling as if he had just won the lottery. I looked at my parents, and in that instant, everything clicked into place. This wasn't a legal eviction. It was pure blackmail. But I no longer wanted to fight or stay where I was being treated like that. In 3 days, I repeated. I stood up. Thanks for dinner. That night I arrived back at the condo and saw it as if it belonged to someone else. It hurt, but not in the way it did before. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was clarity. The next day I started packing. I didn't leave anything of mine behind. Everything I had bought I took out, the furniture, appliances, decorations, lamps, everything. I rented a U-Haul and started early before the Austin traffic got heavy. I rented a storage unit on the other side of the city, in an area that was practical for me to get to with the truck. Each box I carried down was a part of my life leaving, but it was also a decision. Chloe called me non-stop. She screamed that I was being awful, that I was stealing her things. I answered only twice. Chloe, I told her calmly. I bought all of it. Everything. I have the bank transfers, the receipts, whatever you want. You are so ungrateful, she screeched. I hung up. I kept loading. When I finished, the condo looked just like it did when I first moved in. Bare walls, cheap fixtures, the basics, without my touch, without my effort, without my money converted into a home. That night I checked into a hotel downtown. I didn't want to stay even one more minute there. I slept little, but I slept with a strange sense of peace. The next day I started looking for an apartment and found a 1-bedroom in a neighborhood I liked, with good access to everything, comfortable, with just what I needed. By then, rents had gone up everywhere. This one was $1,400 a month, $600 less than what I had been paying Chloe. It made me laugh. But that sad laugh that comes out when you realize how much you've been putting up with. I signed the lease. And that same day I blocked their numbers. My mom's, my dad's, Chloe's, Kevin's, all of them. Finally, I was paying a fair rent, and for the first time in 13 years I didn't have a boss. For the first time since I was an adult, I was going to pursue my dream without supporting someone else's. The day after moving, I started executing my plan. I spent weeks driving around the city, looking at commercial spaces, measuring foot traffic, observing people. I wanted a place with a steady flow of potential customers, but not impossibly expensive, something that had potential. I found an abandoned spot in a small strip mall in North Austin. One of those small ones that have dedicated parking and constant flow. It was in terrible shape. Water damage, old wiring, everything was a mess, but I saw beyond that. There was space, there was a good location, there was opportunity. I got the lease for a good price because no one wanted to take on that project. I was brave enough to remodel it. Paint, flooring, repairs. The heavy stuff was done by licensed professionals. You don't improvise with electricity and plumbing. Meanwhile, I handled the paperwork, business licenses, permits, health inspections, the least glamorous part of opening a business, papers and more papers. But I already knew the process. Because of my experience, I knew what could cause delays, what requirements had to be met, and who to ask for help without getting ripped off. I hired a small team, people I trusted. A chef with whom I had worked before, 2 servers who knew how to treat people with genuine kindness, and a delivery driver. I also set up a delivery service from day one, both with my own driver and with platforms like Uber Eats, because since the pandemic, the industry learned the hard way that delivery is not a luxury, it's a vital part of the business. I took out a moderate bank loan to cover what I was missing, and with my savings I finished setting everything up. I didn't go into debt to show off. I took on debt intelligently. I kept the menu simple but well executed. Comfort food. Gourmet burgers, artisan sandwiches, fresh salads, pastas. Things that office workers and families could order without thinking too much. No weird inventions, just quality, consistency, and good service. On opening day I was terrified. I won't deny it. It was my money, my time, my dreams on the line. If I failed, at 35 I was going to have to start from zero. It didn't fail. In fact, it started better than I had dared to imagine. The delivery service took off immediately. People recommended it. The neighborhood started to recognize my restaurant. The corner grill. Orders came in one after another. At 6 months I was already turning a small but real profit, enough to start making extra payments on my loan. At 9 months the profit doubled and I remained cautious. I reinvested almost everything. Better equipment, small improvements, some local advertising, and a cushion for emergencies. For the first time in a long time I wasn't just surviving, I was growing, and I was doing it without anyone pulling me backward, without family emergencies, without blackmail disguised as affection. A year into owning the restaurant, I was already breathing differently. I could think about expanding the menu, hiring another person, and adding a couple of new dishes. I was in the kitchen reviewing inventory when a call came in from a number I didn't have saved. I answered out of habit. "Hello, Jasmine," said a voice I recognized instantly. "It's your mom." My throat tightened. "Where did you get this number?" I asked. "Sarah gave it to me, a former colleague of yours from the chain," she said, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. "Look, honey, we found out through some friends that you have your own restaurant. How wonderful. We were so happy to hear about you. How have you been?" The fake sweetness sent a shiver down my spine. "What do you want, Mom?" "We want to fix things," she said. "We miss you and we think that maybe we were a little harsh. A family should be united." I laughed. Not a smile. I actually laughed as if she had told me a joke. "You called me a freeloader and you kicked me out with 3 days' notice," I replied. "And now you want to fix things?" "We were worried about money," she said hurriedly. "You know how people get." "I get it," I said. "You found out that I didn't end up on the street and now you want to come back." Her voice changed. The sweetness vanished. "Don't you disrespect me," she snapped. "Your sister let you live in her condo for years." "I paid her rent and then some," I said without raising my voice. "Well," she continued, ignoring my point. "Look, Kevin lost his job last month and Chloe rented out the condo to new tenants, but they are only paying her $1,500. She is struggling. We thought you could help." There it was. The truth without any sugarcoating. "That sounds like a you problem," I said. "How can you be so selfish?" she complained. "We are your family. You guys made it very clear that I'm not family when I need support. I'm only family when you need money. Goodbye." And I blocked that number. I thought that would be enough. I was wrong. The next day I received a text from another unknown number. It was Chloe. Predictably, she told me that I was a bitter, resentful, selfish person, that I had always been envious of her, that I was abandoning the family, that I had become arrogant just because I owned a small restaurant. I didn't answer her. I blocked the number and kept working. 1 week later, right at the peak of the lunch rush, I saw them walk in. My parents, Chloe, Kevin, and Lily. My body froze. They walked in looking around as if they were health inspectors. They sat down at one of the best tables without asking, as if it belonged to them. Yesenia, one of my waitresses, approached me looking confused. "That table says they want to speak with the owner. They are acting strange, Jasmine." I took a deep breath and walked toward them. My heart was pounding, but my face remained firm. "What do you want?" I asked. Chloe raised her voice immediately so the tables around us could hear. "We came to eat." "Fine," I said. Here is the menu. No, she said with that smirk I knew so well. We came to eat, but we don't have any money. And since we are your family, we figured you are going to give us food for free. I felt people turning to look. And I understood in that second. They wanted to embarrass me in front of everyone. As if that would somehow break me. This is a business, I said slowly and clearly. It is not a charity. If you cannot pay, you have to leave. My mom spoke just as loudly, as if she were giving a speech. We are your family. Really, you can't treat us to one meal? Don't be like that. Kevin leaned back in his chair with an arrogant calm. We can come every day, you know? Until you get the message. We can make it a habit. That's when my patience ran out. I turned around, walked to the counter, and picked up the restaurant's phone. Security, I said when they answered. This is Jasmine from the Corner Grill. I need you to come and remove some individuals who are causing a disturbance and attempting to receive service without paying. I didn't yell, I didn't threaten. I just did what you do when someone is trying to disrupt your business. In less than 5 minutes, 2 private security guards from the shopping center arrived. I saw them enter and I pointed to the table. It's them, I said. They are bothering my customers and refuse to pay. The guards approached them. Good afternoon. You'll have to come with us. My dad stood up indignant. This is an abuse of power. She is our daughter. The guard didn't flinch. Sir, this is a private establishment. If the owner asks you to leave, you have to leave. Chloe tried to make a scene. She started yelling that I was ungrateful, that I didn't know the meaning of family, what a disgrace. But the guards were professional and didn't engage. They escorted them toward the exit. Lily turned to look at me, her expression confused, and that was the only thing that truly hurt me. Not for them, but for the little girl. When they were outside, I approached the guards. Please do not let them enter again. Any of them. They nodded. I returned to the dining room and took a deep breath. Then I approached 2 tables that had witnessed the whole thing. My apologies for the interruption, I said. It's been resolved. Most people were understanding. A few even left me a larger tip than usual, as if they wanted to say well done, without actually saying it. That was 2 years ago. I haven't seen them again. Sometimes messages arrive from new numbers, always with the same script. That they miss me, that we have to reconcile, that family is the most important thing. I delete them without getting past the first line. My business, on the other hand, grew a lot and life still had a surprise in store for me. Last month, an opportunity arrived that I would have never imagined when they fired me for being old. The chain where I worked for so many years went bankrupt. It turned out that Valerie's brilliant ideas weren't so brilliant after all. The changes without rhyme or reason, the nepotism, the mismanagement, it all came crashing down on them. And Mr. Peterson, my former mentor, lost practically everything. I found out through contacts in the industry. It gave me a mix of sadness and anger, but I also saw the reality. They were liquidating assets. There were auctions, sales, people selling things off for pennies on the dollar to pay their debts. I gathered my financials, spoke with my bank, and seized the moment. I bought one of their strongest locations for a fraction of its market value. Between my savings and a well-secured business loan, I was able to close the deal. The building, the equipment, everything. The brand name came with it, but I changed it as soon as I could. I didn't want to live under the shadow of that history. And the best part was that I could rescue people. I kept the employees I knew, hardworking people who had endured those difficult years. When I walked in there as the owner and not as the director who got fired, several of them couldn't believe it. A couple of them stared at me with tears in their eyes when I told them, "Your jobs are safe. We are going to build this back up the right way." Today I earn more than I ever dreamed of when I was an employee. I am finally ready to buy my own home, to stop renting with no landlords, without depending on anyone for a roof over my head. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if my family had supported me when I lost my job. If they had had a little bit of understanding, even if it were just an "I'm sorry, we are here for you." But then I remember that scene at the restaurant, that word freeloader, and the thought vanishes. Because although it sounds harsh, they did me a favor without meaning to. They pushed me out when I was getting used to just enduring. They gave me a shove when I was still waiting for their approval. They wanted to punish me by cutting me off, and what they actually did was set me free. And when my mom called me a freeloader, I understood something that changed my life. For years, I had been supporting the true freeloaders. They thought they were closing doors on me, but they opened the only one I ever really needed. They let me go, and I haven't been happier since. Thanks for staying with me until the end. I understood something that took me years to accept. Helping is not the same as letting yourself be used. I confused love with endurance and ended up living with guilt, as if saying no made me a bad daughter or a bad sister. But true affection doesn't humiliate you, it doesn't drain you, and it doesn't put a price on you. I also learned that when they close a door on you with contempt, sometimes they are unintentionally pushing you toward the life that you actually deserve. If anything in my story struck a chord with you or reminded you of your own moments, I just want to tell you this with all my heart. Set boundaries without shame. The family that truly loves you might get uncomfortable at first, but in the end they will understand. And if they don't understand, then it wasn't love, it was just habit. Sending you a hug from here. Comment. I hope this story reminded you of your inner strength today. We often confuse love with obligation, but real love never asks you to sacrifice your dignity. Your value isn't defined by how much financial support or unpaid labor you can provide for others. Learning to set firm boundaries isn't cruelty. It's a necessary step toward protecting your peace of mind. Sometimes the doors that slam in our faces are pushing us toward the path we were meant to take. Trust that you have the resilience to rebuild your life, even when the people you trusted most let you down. Walking away from toxic environments is one of the bravest things you can do for your future self. True success is waking up each morning feeling free, without the heavy weight of guilt. Please remember that you deserve people who celebrate your growth, not people who try to use it. Thank you for being part of this community, and never be afraid to put your well-being first. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.